What's up, everyone? This is David Greenspan, and you are listening to the Mindshare Podcast, a proud member of the Industry Syndicate Media Network. Additional podcasts are available at mindshare101.com and on all the major podcast platforms. This week's episode is sponsored by Kit's Keep in Touch Systems. This is episode 72. Prior to 2008, he was the lead international kidnapping negotiator for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, as well as the FBI's hostage negotiation representative for the National Security Council's Hostage Working Group. During his government career, he also represented the U.S. government at 2 international conferences sponsored by the G8 as an expert in kidnapping. Prior to becoming the FBI lead international kidnapping negotiator, he served as the lead crisis negotiator for the New York City division of the FBI. He was a member of the New York City Joint Terrorist Task Force for 14 years and has been the case agent on such cases as Terror Stop, the Blind Sheik case, Sheikh Omar Abdel Rahman, the TWA Flight 800 catastrophe, and the Chase Manhattan Bank robbery hostage taken, where he negotiated the surrender of the first hostage takeover to give up. During his 24-year tenure in the Bureau, he was trained in the art of negotiation by not only the FBI, but Scotland Yard and Harvard Law School. He is also a recipient of the Attorney General's Award of Excellence in Law Enforcement and the FBI Agents Association Award for Distinguished and Exemplary Service. He has taught business negotiation in the MBA program as an adjunct professor at University of Southern California's Marshall School of Business and at Georgetown University's McDonough School of Business. He has taught business negotiation at Harvard University, guest lectured at the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University, the IMD Business School in Lausanne, Switzerland, and the Goethe School of Business in Frankfurt, Germany. Since 2009, he has also worked with Insight Security as their managing director of the kidnapping resolution practice. On this episode of the Mindshare Podcast, I am excited to be joined by a master in the art of negotiation, the author of the famous title called Never Split the Difference, Mr. Chris Voss. Chris, welcome to the show today.
David, thank you very much. Happy to be here, man. I got to tell you something. It's a long resume. You put me to sleep.
Hey, man, it's yours. So as it is. Yeah. I got a question for you. If I said to you something like, I need a car in 60 seconds or she dies, how do you answer that?
Sounds like you want to survive all this.
It sounds like you want to survive all that. That's an interesting one. I would have never thought that would be the answer you give me on that.
Yeah, well, you know what? When somebody talks to you under any circumstance, you know, what are they really expressing? What's deep down inside? If you can hit that, you can catch them off guard. I mean, you could trigger a change in them. Actually, it's kind of cool. It's if you trigger an epiphany in the other person, what happens if you trigger an epiphany? If you trigger an insight they didn't have before? Well, what happens is they get a couple chemicals, the neurochemicals that are released in their system are the ever popular serotonin, the magic dopamine, and the most important of all, oxytocin, which is the bonding drug. If I can trigger an oxytocin release in you, you've just bonded with me. Now, I don't mind bonding with you, but I like it even better when you bond with me because I get some ridiculous influence in it.
Well, I mean, you know, coming off what you just said and thinking about the way you answered that, it threw me right off.
Well, it threw you off, number one. Yeah, it caught you off guard. Then the other thing, too, is the tough thing about role plays, you know, I know in advance if somebody is trying to escape, that means they're worried about dying. There's a point in time in the future that they envision that they would love to be alive. Great negotiator, whether you're business or hostage, and business negotiators who are superstars say stuff like, you know, 10 years from now, I want us to be able to look back on how great the last 10 years with each other were. I mean, that picks a spot in the future that's great. We work our way back from that. It's a completely different conversation.
So prior to getting on air, we talked about what's going on with the market. We talked obviously about what's happening out there, how everybody is holding up, and I gave you insight into my audience, and just to kind of reiterate that our audience here is made up of entrepreneurs and small business owners, realtors, mortgage brokers, loan officers, people who deal with people on the front line for a living. And as I mentioned, my goal for each episode is for everybody to walk away with something that they can implement into their own business. Now, typically speaking, none of these people are dealing in hostage situations. Okay. I mean, like, you could consider that if I don't make the right deal on the house that my wife thought was perfect and we lose out on it, things could get a little bit bad for me. But in reality, it is a pretty safe environment. So I want to go through this scenario, which is just a typical scenario. And as again, we talked about prior to getting on air was, is this scenario even happening right now? But I want to kind of position this as we're back to a normal world, right? And just real simple, but real life situation that, again, our audience faces on a regular basis. I'm selling my house, and we'll say it's listed at $1 million, and my agent is here, and you are the buyer agent, and you come in and you guys decide you're going to make an offer for $900,000. Let's just say $100,000 less. Now, I know in the book you summarize the 5 steps, and by the way, if anybody has not got Never Split the Difference yet, what are you waiting for? Go get it. You can get it on Audible and all your bookstores. But I know in the book you summarize these 5 steps. And is that the process that we walk through? Or can you take us through that process? Like, if you were that listing agent and somebody came in with a lower offer, I mean, I know a lot of people here have the ways they would deal with it, but I'm curious, how would you walk through that process?
So who am I? Because
you're the buyer, you're the agent for the buyer. So you guys are the ones basically coming in and lowballing this whole thing.
Yeah, well, the low ball is assertion. Let's say, empathy precedes assertion. You want your assertion to be useless, then assert without empathy. It's a great way to spin your wheels to waste your time. You want your assertion to actually hit its mark without offending the other side. You got to precede it with some form of tactful empathy. Let's get out of the definition of empathy. In today's vernacular, empathy is synonymous with sympathy. It's not. Let's get out of that. Or compassion or agreement. Let's let that stuff go. That S-T-U-F-F. That's utter nonsense. Empathy, in its original design, was never meant to be synonymous with sympathy, agreement, or compassion. Now, to be empathic is a compassionate thing to do. And it's the first step towards compassion. But it's not the same thing. Empathy is a mercenary skill. Tactical empathy is a mercenary skill. So if I assert without empathy, then I am slapping myself in the face. I'm wasting my time. It's a counterproductive activity. So I'm not coming in with a low ball first. I'm establishing a relationship first. Now, how do you establish a relationship? Again, you go back and you paint a vision of the future. Every real estate person that I coach in terms of their buyer, drop a letter on the other side along with your offer that paints a picture of how you see the house in your future. Hi, it's Chris. It's Mr. and Mrs. Voss. We don't want a house. We want a home. We want a place where we can have cherished memories of the future. We envision your home as our home where we raise our children, where we celebrate anniversaries, where we celebrate birthdays. You begin to paint a picture of the future in the home. You're looking to have the other side see you as a human being. As a real estate agent that I was talking to probably about 2 years ago, he said, we're having trouble getting people to respond to our emails and our texts and our offers. And we spent a lot of time getting to know the other side. And I said, that's exactly what you're doing wrong. And he went, what? I said, say that again. We spent a lot of time getting to know the other side. And I said, yeah, well, how much do they know you? You spent a lot of time getting to know them. What are you to them? You're an ink signature on a piece of paper, nothing more. You make a lowball offer without having caused a process to see you as a human being with hopes and dreams for the future, just like them, but you can't say I'm just like you. There's a real clear, important distinction here. You never say I'm just like you. That's a manipulation that they see right away. but you got to get them to see you as a human being with hopes and dreams for the future, so that you're no longer just a signature on the bottom of a contract.
Okay, so then I take you down this part of it, another scenario then. And we get this one a lot, and I get asked this question as well. A realtor has a property listed. They stated in the listing ad that offers are being accepted on some specific time and day. So you cannot submit your offer today. You need to wait until, say, Friday. Today is whatever, Wednesday at 4 p.m. You've got to wait until Friday at 8 p.m. is when we're accepting these things. This is the listing agent taking control of the situation, saying that this is when they're going to do it. Now, it creates some demand. It sets up this multiple offer situation. But you're the buyer agent, and you can't submit that offer in advance. You've got to wait until that day and time. You've got questions. Your buyers really want the house. You try to get in touch with the listing agent, but they don't respond. And if they do, they simply tell you offers are being accepted on. And then once you submit the offer, you literally just have to wait to find out, did you win it? Did you not? This is a common situation where there's a lack of communication, and bottom line, only one buyer agent that actually gets the win on this whole thing, right? So with negotiation being such a major part of the deal and major part of the process, and then we talk about coming in with empathy and really trying to connect with people, we've kind of moved away from this. Like, how do you deal with that situation right there, based on what you've already said, and then based on the scenario I just painted, where negotiation ability, communication ability, the ability to build relationship is kind of almost gone, or I mean, is it? And again, what are the steps that maybe we can take to win that type of battle?
Okay, so you're describing some tactic that can only be successful in a hot seller's market. And that means that in your area right now, you've got a hot seller's market. It's going up. There's lines of buyers, and that's the foreseeable future. I mean, there's going to be a hot market through the summer and all the way through the end of 2020.
It's certainly what we were expecting prior to this whole thing hitting.
But is that what you've got?
Again, if we weren't going through COVID and everybody's sitting at home right now, that's exactly what we would be having.
All right, so you don't have that, but what you're telling me is you still got agents that are trying to pull that off.
Oh, it's a tactic that people, I think, whether it's a hot seller's market or not, I think it's a tactic that people have been going after these days, just to say, look, this is when we're going to accept stuff. Because again, it creates up pent-up demand. It gets
okay,
people,
hold on. Unless I was born last night,
yeah,
I know we're not in a hot seller's market. And I know that the agent that tries to act like it's a hot seller's market is doomed to failure. So,
there's a lot of things that are done out there that don't make a lot of sense.
I'm not saying it's not there. Data improves design. I mean, every negotiation, every interaction is a data gathering exercise. So if I'm dealing with a seller's agent that thinks this is a hot seller's market and that is going to continue, then I know for a fact that I have an idiot on the other side. Now, I have to proceed as if this is an idiot, but I also have to be gentle. I've just gotten smarter. I mean, there's no way that anybody on planet Earth who's in touch with reality thinks they're in a hot seller's market that is going to continue to go up at this point in time. And if they are, they're not in touch with reality. Nobody believes that. They have to be unaware that there is a global pandemic to believe that. And I'm not sure how many people are in business that are unaware that it's a global pandemic. And as you said, that doesn't stop people from trying this. So it is tried. Now, how do I engage with someone who has started with a tactic that is doomed to fail? Again, when this fails on the part of the seller's agent, and it's going to fail, they're going to be more likely to continue to try to collaborate their way out of this with somebody that they've established a connection with. This is a circular loop back to, it's always to your advantage to establish a connection with the people on the other side. And there's always a team on the other side. Now, agents don't like to let buyers and sellers communicate directly with one another because they feel one side or the other is either vulnerable to negotiation or vulnerable to giving in or vulnerable to blowing it up. So it's not that they want to block communication. They want to block bad communication. They want to block communication that might interfere with the deal being made, because an agent's got to eat. an agent's job is to make a deal where the banks that happens after it, because the agent that is unaware of the value of their referral pipeline is also somebody who's not going to be in business a year from now, certainly not 3 years from now. The turnover in the real estate business is high. 90% of agents don't make it. And the ones that do make it and last for a long time realize that long-term relationships at all stages of the game are critical. So this takes us right back to, you don't establish a working relationship with anybody without establishing an understanding of the other side. Now, this also takes us right back to the letter, because there's nothing harmful in a letter that goes in with the offer. You send in a letter outlining hopes and dreams for the future of a house along with the offer. What happens? What happens is the agent looks at that letter, and that agent goes like, wow, these are decent people. This isn't going to harm my transaction. This actually might help me get this thing done. Is it guaranteed that letter is going to go through with the offer? There ain't nothing guaranteed. Anybody out there is telling you that they got guaranteed success, they're smoking something, or they're conning you. You know, emotional intelligence gives you your best chance of success. Not a guarantee of success, but guarantee of best chance of success. How do I improve my odds every step of the way? I'm writing the same letter. I'm submitting that same letter with my offer. What is going to happen? We did this in hostage negotiation all the time. We're engaged in one-way communication. We're sending communication. We're not getting response in a moment, but we know our text, we know our email, we know our letter, we know our voice message is actually being listened to. One-way communication, how do we script it so that no matter what, this falls on good ears? Well, we just put stuff in there that humanizes us, paints a vision for the future where people are happy with the transaction when they look back on it. So basically, it's still the same strategy.
So it's again, and it comes back to building relationship with people, which is, as we know in this business, that is the utmost importance in this biz, is creating relationships.
Creating your relationship, your currency has got to be legitimacy. Your currency has got to be, I know what I'm talking about, and if I say it, you can take it to the bank. There are a lot of people that are willing to sacrifice one of those two currencies for a short-term deal. Those are also short-term careers. There's an old saying, you do something right, 3 people know about it. You do something wrong, 12 people know about it. When you lie, you got a 12x factor of you being a liar blasting around your industry, and it doesn't take long for everybody to be wise to who and what you are.
It's amazing how that works. So now, before making then any moves in a negotiation, and when we look at sort of what the company name is, and we look at that some of those final points that we read through, you teach us that we need to find the black swan.
Yeah. What's a black swan?
Well, for people that's the thing. And I think for people that don't know or haven't read or maybe didn't see, what does that mean? How do we go about that? And again, I would leave those two scenarios on the table and kind of just continuing to kind of go, okay, we've got people in those things, because I love what you say about the letter and the relationship. I mean, I've said it before. I've got on my basement stairs in my basement, which is unfinished, 2 2x4s where I've been measuring the kids, and every 6 months I measure them, their height. And it continues,
wow.
Hey, listen, it's one of those things that when I sell the house, my wife's like, you're not going to take those. I'm like, you better damn well believe I'm taking those with me, right? Now, if you want to win the deal, if you submitted a letter to me, and I've used this example before with my audiences and my coaching class, if you submitted the letter to me and said, hey, by the way, we saw those 2 2x4s in your basement, and we were thinking, we want to cut those out for you. And in fact, we want to do, ABC with that, frame it or whatever it is, or lacquer the thing and send it off to you. My clients really thought that would be sentimental. That's the one letter out of maybe the other 5 or 10, or maybe even none of the letters that came through that all of a sudden just hit me. You just hit me right in the heart. Your offer may not be as good as the next person, but you're going to take care of this place. Where I raised my family, you're going to raise yours. So it's understanding the importance to me of some of those little things and the sentimental part of it and the relationship and getting in deeper. So now, where does the black swan fit into that?
I want to back up a second just on that letter thing too, also, because I know of multiple instances in hot real estate markets where the seller has settled for less money because that letter went in with the offer.
Right.
So and that's when the seller theoretically has all the cards. So don't underestimate the power of a letter or an emotionally intelligent touch like that in winning the day. What's the percentage times that it's going to make a difference? What difference does that make? Are you willing to leave those on the table? How much more effort it is? It's not. It's not. I don't care if it works 1% of the time. As a hostage negotiator, I believe in taking every advantage I could get every step of the way. And you know what? That stuff adds up pretty quickly when you're looking for an edge all the time.
Right.
It doesn't take that much to beat somebody else. So if I may, sorry about the
No.
digression.
But it's great insight. Absolutely.
Yeah, but the black swan. All right, the black swan, and you just described a black swan. A black swan is the impact of the improbable, the little things that make all the difference in the world. And the crazy thing is, they're always there. I mean, I could talk to anybody on the planet, and I could walk you through intellectually why, as our military brothers and sisters would say, it's an asymmetric world, or our academic brothers and sisters would say, you have imperfect information, that there's always something there that you don't know. And the crazy thing is, the other side is always holding stuff back. I mean, if you're holding stuff back, and they are. And why do you hold something back? Because it's important. So not only is there stuff that they're holding back, but they're holding it back because it's important. Who knows what it might be? But you're always smarter when if you take the extra time to sort of find out what it is. Maybe it was nothing. All right, so you find out there wasn't anything there. But you found out the one thing that would make all the difference in the world. What's the 2x4 with the kids' heights on it? I mean, that's nothing. Find that out about the other side. And whatever percentage chance it increases your success, that's how you don't leave money on the table. The little things that make all the difference in the world. It's always there. It just always is. The amount of time invested in finding out what it is far exceeds what it costs you to invest in time, or the reward far exceeds what it costs you to invest in time.
And that's the thing there. And that's exactly what I took from that part of it was, you got to dig for that stuff. And this is stuff we know from like sales 101, right? Dig for the need, ask the open-ended questions, learn as much as you possibly can. There's a lot of times where, communication lacks severely in this business. And I know I've done the polls in this industry, and I've asked people, and everybody listening knows this stuff. Communication is right there, unfortunately, just below people being having a lack of respect for each other, which is sad to see. But right below that is the lack of communication from each other. So now you've got this lack of communication. You've got people who are probably not going into this as strategic as how we'd like them to go into it, or how they ultimately would probably want to if they knew what they didn't know, right? But that being said, because of lack of communication, how do you continue to dig for that black swan? How do you continue to find out those little unknowns? Is there any tips on that? And I mean, again, when there's no communication, I'm not really sure what the answers to that stuff are, but have you got any suggestions on that? Or is it like there's no communication, there's no communication?
We got a thing that's called a label, and it's innocuous and seemingly innocent, and it both is innocent and effective, which is just called a label. And it's meant to be self-defining, labeling a dynamic or an emotion or an action, and being willing to give yourself a lot of leeway. And the labeling actually unlocks the floodgates of truth talk. Like I could say to you, what do you think? And you're probably going to say, I don't know. And you tell me one or two of the 8 things that you think. But if instead I say to you, seems like you've had some thoughts about this, you're probably going to give me 6 of the 8. You might give me 8 of the 8. There's this crazy approach to information gathering that we find out over and over again. If I really want to know, I don't ask you a question. I label that you probably had a thought about it. I could say, what are your options? Or I could say, seems like you thought through some options. Now, the response for the label gives you the opportunity to show off the thinking that you've engaged in, which literally everybody wants to show off their thinking. What stops them is, am I going to get contradicted? Am I going to get argued with? I'd be happy to tell you my thoughts if you don't argue with me,
Right.
or if you don't tell me I'm wrong, or if you don't ignore everything I say because all you did was wait for your turn to speak. But if you're actually going to listen to me and you say something to me that triggers this download of information, I'm probably going to spew that information all over the room.
So it seems like you have a lot more to share on this topic.
There you go. Nicely
Hey, is
done.
that good?
Exactly it. You're a good student. That would be exactly the way you would want to say that.
As opposed to, so what more can you tell me?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
If you say, what more can I tell you? My instant reaction to that is like, oh, wow, what did I leave out? That I sound stupid. I mean, I'm distracted by all these other thoughts that go with what happens when you ask a question. Have I been inadequate? Am I happy with what, I get there's all this sort of self-doubt gets triggered in the moment that makes me very conscious of what I just said. But if you roll out seems like, none of that self-consciousness, that self-doubt, none of that is triggered. And I probably just keep going.
Right. And that's the idea behind it. That's what I loved about that thing about labeling, was that it's almost like I don't know if I'm putting this properly when I say it's like you're backing them a little bit into a corner without making it defensive. It's almost opportunistic, where you're now saying, share more with me, but kind of going, this is the situation the way I'm seeing it. That's kind of what I was taking from that, because the labeling is painting a picture of what's going on at that exact moment.
Yeah, it's a much more sharing, collaborative context, which then makes it much easier for me to just keep going. I mean, you're not triggering any of the defensiveness, any of the self-doubt, any of the insecurities that, unfortunately, to some degree, almost every question triggers.
So again, it's more about creating the open-ended question, digging further by, again, putting well, I guess that's the word for it, the label on that.
Now, well, and as we're talking through, what we're trying to create is an open-ended response.
Okay.
Now, our open-ended question, the theory and the strategy behind an open-ended question is we want an open-ended response. We don't want a closed response. We don't want a yes or a no. We want lots of data. So we're trying to create an open-ended response. And how do we trigger that? What is most likely to provoke that open response?
Label it. Get them to speak more.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so now you're getting the responses, and now you're going through the conversation. You're having the back and forth. You're digging for that black swan. You're looking further into there. You also teach us about mirroring the other person to bring them in closer and create that like-minded rapport with people. Tell us more about this concept. And one thing that I was very curious about is, can it really be just any 3 words?
Yeah, all right. So first, let's define a mirror. Let's draw a distinction between what most people come to learn, the body language mirror, where, if you're talking and, you lean to one side and you go like this, now I'm going to lean to one side and go like this. I'm going to mirror your body language. And theoretically, you feel we're in sync and you feel rapport and resonance. And suddenly you're telling me you deep to dark secrets.
Is that why you're doing with the hands? Because I always talk with my hands. You're doing back with me now?
Actually, a long time ago, I was accused that if I put my hands in my pockets, I would be unable to speak. And I was lecturing a class, and I put my hands in my pockets just to prove the guy wrong. And then I went, all right, screw that. That's not true.
I think most people who've seen me present before are all laughing at that right now, going, Dave I can't even stand still. Never mind sit in this one chair for, the hour or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we're afflicted with the same disease.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Would you like a podium for that? No, please, no podium. Just give me a microphone. Let me run around, because otherwise, if I got to hold something, I can't even. Yeah, anyways. Sorry, back to that. So is it really only 3 words? Or can it be any 3 words?
It's 1 to 3-ish words.
Okay.
It's a repetition of 1 to 3-ish words. It could be, if you get north of 5, you're getting into a paraphrase, which is a different ball game. It's another effective skill, but it's just not the same skill.
Okay.
It's a little bit of the difference between a nail and a screw. They look kind of alike, but they're very different things.
Love
And
that
they're both,
analogy. Yeah.
yeah. So a mirror is 1 to 3-ish words. Repetition as closely word for word as close as possible. We teach people to start with the last 1 to 3-ish words spoken, just because that makes the execution of the skill require literally no brain power. Just repeat the last 1 to 3 words that they said. If there are 1 to 3-ish other words you're intrigued by, there's something about those words that jumped out at you, that your gut instinct said what they said was important here. There's something here. There's a thread here I want to pull on. I want to see what's on this thread. Well, yeah, you can shift to those 1 to 3-ish words as a substitute for what did you mean by that. It's actually much more effective than saying what did you mean by that, because again, that's a question. Whereas if you just mirror what you want to say, what do you mean by that, it triggers something in somebody's brain, which is equivalent of what you said was inadequate, and I heard the words you used and it was still inadequate, so I need more with different words. Because many times when you say to somebody, what do you mean by difficult situation? The person is going to go, difficult situation. They're just going to say it again, only louder. And that's not going to help anybody. So it creates a connection in somebody's brain, and they expand.
So we're creating a connection in somebody's brain.
Very nice. You're creating.
Did I do that right?
And, a lot of times maybe somebody just stopped talking because they're trying to collect their thoughts. So your mirror creates the connection and helps them collect their thoughts, and they go on. And they continue to pour information out on you. There's so many ways it helps the other side think, helps them catch their breath, gives them a moment to get their focus and feel remarkably encouraged and want to go on simultaneously with different words.
So getting people to pour information out.
Which is the information gathering process.
That's it.
Information is a commodity.
Now, what happened? As I'm doing that, there was that moment there where I'm going, okay, I'm about to mirror. I know what I'm doing in my head. What if you do hold that pause? Do I hold that pause too, or do I kind of go, he's not giving me anything back right now, I gotta jump in?
Yeah, you start counting 1,000s to yourself.
So we get to 10 and there's this awkward silence. What do you do?
If you got to 10, which nobody on my team has ever gotten to 10,
okay.
And all of us are counting, most of the time if somebody's going stone silent on you, they'll hold out on you for about the count of 3. My son, who's a master of this, which is, why actually we've taken a skill of effective pause and retitled it to dynamic silence. He does it all the time. He's never gone past 7. Let's pretend like somebody goes to 10. That's when you look at him and say something like, feels like I made you shut up.
Right away. No. I was just thinking. I was gathering my thoughts, or they're going to say something to you.
Or whatever it is. One time, one guy was, and this is a role play simulation. Funny thing about role plays is frequently the other person's only about 30% of it genuinely in it, and you got to figure out which is the legitimate 30%, which is a nonsense 70%. So this guy we're at a law firm, very senior attorney. My son, younger at the time, the law firm attorney is going to put this kid in his place. And he's giving him stone silence in response to the mirror. And so my son says, sounds like I've offended you.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Sounds like I offended you.
And the guy's body language completely shifts out of, I'm attacking you, to, wow, I'm being a recognition on his part that he's being a jerk, which he was. He was being a jerk. But this is how my son made him feel like he was being a jerk without calling him a name.
And then
the guy shifted out of it and came down, and immediately they were in a collaborative conversation.
I love that. So now when you're doing the mirroring, is exploiting that similarity principle, is that a similar thing?
Well, I'm leery of the similarity principle because as a hostage negotiator, I wanted to be able to have an effective negotiation with someone I had no similarity with. Because if I'm handcuffed by similarity, that's going to limit my effectiveness, and I don't want to be I don't want to be limited. So, there's a larger issue of similarity in the nature of human beings and our emotional wiring. Right now, that's a much more esoteric conversation.
Okay.
I don't want to be limited by similarity. If there's nothing in my resume where you and I share similarity or common ground, I still want to be able to negotiate effectively with you. So I'm cautious of similarity and sort of like how we define that. Is it common ground? I don't know.
Okay. No, that's fair. That makes a lot of sense. It's better off that I guess what you do is then you play the mirroring game, because at least at that point you can keep getting those open-ended conversation going, and you can keep digging for more information, and you don't need to, you're mirroring, so you're carrying the conversation, but you're not playing the similarity principle where you're trying to almost be the same.
Right.
So
exactly
I can
right.
see where, yeah, okay, I can see what the differences are. So, you talk about creating the illusion of control. And again, when we stick with the scenarios that I painted out there, kind of like, saying maybe it would be a hot sales market, these multiple offer situations, or holding off offers to whatever. How does an agent create the illusion of control when there's a lack of communication with the other agent? So how do I let my clients know we're good, I got this? And we just said that guarantees and all that stuff, you can't guarantee everything, but and I want to ask you about the guarantee of execution as well. How do we create that illusion of control?
Yeah, well, I can tell you something. I love people that are control freak negotiators because they're ridiculously insecure. They're ridiculously vulnerable. Once you make them feel like they're in control, bang, you got them. Their guard drops. They will do whatever you want. They're so vulnerable to deference, to open-ended questions, to things as stupid as saying like, "Wow, you're in charge. You're in charge. I mean, you have got control of this situation. You've so got this under control." And they go, "Yeah, I do. What do you want?" It's nuts. I mean, I love control freak negotiators. They're so vulnerable to giving you what you want as soon as you make them feel like they're in control. I mean, you get almost anything out of them. Like, "Oh man, you're so in control of this. Here's what I need." You go, "Okay, all I want is to be in control." It's insane. So I'm deferential. If my communication is limited, then I say I would probably send that control freak seller's agent an email saying like, "Wow, you have got this under control. You are really impressive. You are really about protecting your client's best interests. You are about maximizing your client's value." Because that's what they're communicating. And they're also communicating, they're scared to death to talk to anybody because they don't have a lot of confidence in their ability to verbally communicate. I mean, what do you communicate when you're limiting communication? They're scared to communicate. That's what you're telling people.
Yeah.
You're telling them you're insecure. You're telling them you're afraid. You're telling them that you fear being out of control, which means you're ridiculously vulnerable to all those things.
So this really is more about actually painting the illusion of control on the other person, so that you start to be able to reveal more about what you're looking for. You start to
Right,
put them in a
exactly.
play. Right? That's the idea. It's not about telling my client I got this under control, or my client telling me. It's about me using this as a tactic when I'm speaking to the person on the other side, going, "Hey, man, you got this under control."
Yeah. I mean, the phrase that we love is
Yeah,
the secret to gaining the upper hand at a negotiation is to give the other side the illusion of control.
love it. You
And
guys get that? Everybody get that?
yeah, and everybody gets it. And when you put it like that, everybody goes like, "Oh yeah, we want the upper hand." The upper hand this is a dynamic environment. The issue is how do we keep the upper hand in a dynamic environment, not who's in control.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so guarantee execution then. No matter the situation, we always want the people on our side to believe that we are going to win. We want to give them that reassurance, that guarantee that we've got this, right? how do we reassure our clients that we've got this, that we're going to win? What are some lines that can be used, or how do we go about creating confidence? And as I ask that question, I'm going to say to myself, prior to you answering it, it's not even about the lines, or it's not about telling people that. It's almost about how you go about what you're doing. But I guess I'll
All
ask
right,
the
yeah,
question of how do we do that? How do we reassure the clients that we've got this?
yeah. Well, first of all, I look, reassuring a client, if saying to a client, "I got this," is really close to, "I guarantee you that we will get this deal at your price." What have you just set yourself up for?
Failure.
A loss of referral.
Yeah.
Even if you get the deal, you're painting guarantees. The only thing you can guarantee is that this is going to be a journey that's going to have its ups and downs. If you say, "I got this," you're now the reason that agents have to cut their fees, because an agent's value, and by the way, a good real estate agent is worth way more than full commission. Whatever the commission is in your area, whether 6%, whatever full commission is, you are a bargain. Your value is navigating the process. It's not getting an agreement. It's navigating the process. A finder's fee is 10%. And somebody that does a great job putting a buyer and seller together outside of real estate and then shepherds the deal through if they have any sense, that's 10%. So real estate agents at full fee are a bargain. What you are is someone who helps them navigate the process and preserve the pipeline. Because if you lie to somebody about how this is going to, "I got this, it's going to be rosy, you're not going to have to worry about a thing, this is going to be easy," you just set yourself up for failure. You just set yourself up for the reason why 80% of buyers and sellers say they would refer their agent and only 20% do. What's the disconnect? In my view, the disconnect is people painting a rosy picture of the process, having the process not be rosy because there are home inspections, there are contingencies, there are counteroffers based on what's uncovered in the inspections, there's financing issues. Unless somebody's making an all-cash offer with no contingencies, there are going to be bumps in the road. And to say that there aren't is asking to cut your own throat. So first of all, I would never say, "I got this."
Yep.
I'd say, "Here's what this is going to look like. This is going to have its twists and turns. There's going to be some difficulties along the way. What I can guarantee you with is a process that gives you your best chance of success and your best opportunity to get the best deal you possibly can." You focus on that, and implied in that is there's no 1,000% guarantees anywhere. And as you work your way through the process, instead of getting blindsided, your clients are going to be blindsided if you told them it was going to be all rosy. When they get hit with something that was unexpected in the moment, they're going to say, "You know what? My agent told me there's going to be twists and turns. Thank God they didn't lie to me. This is part of the process, as they predicted would happen. And you know what? They look even smarter to me now than they were before." That's how you build up your referral pipeline, and that's how you build a business that lasts, instead of going back and finding another job 2 or 3 years from now because you're only closing one deal a year.
Communication. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Don't make promises you can't keep. Don't guarantee people.
Yeah.
Back in Niagara Falls, you delivered a presentation that left everybody in that room crying in laughter. Now, I would say, the first probably what?
They added that laughter part.
Well, the 95%, yeah, it wasn't just crying. That 95%, was a lot of learning and a lot of great insight. There was that video that you played at the end, and I tell you now, I checked the mirror a million times before we got on today to make sure that, and I haven't had a haircut in like a month and a half, which is bad as well. Just everybody shut down. But anyways, that CNN interview was just hilarious. But you had shared a lot with us, and two things that really stood out to me. One was, don't ask, "How are you?" And two was, go for the no instead of the yes. And when you did that, I was like, I'm sitting here just like, everything just exploded. So I I want to go down the road on both of those. Okay. I get that asking how are you in a hostage situation could be a bad question. But again, let's look at it from a business perspective. Often, very often, most often, we all start calls and conversations and with, or we naturally see somebody as we're walking down the street, hey, how are you? And I regularly encourage everybody to get on the phone. And this is what I tell people, just again, communication, get on the phone and communicate with people, check in with your database. And through this entire pandemic right now, everybody is dealing with different stuff. In the book, we say, don't feel their pain, label it.
Right.
So are the words, how are you, something that should be fully cut out of the start of any conversation and even more specifically a negotiation? And then what are some questions or some ways to approach that initial kind of like, hello, what do you say to that? Especially,
All right,
again,
so
thinking about the pandemic going on right now.
yeah, let's the how are you thing again, and this would be the hard part. This is very much like somebody trying to give a battered child a hug. Right. So what's our experience with how are you? First of all, our experience with how are you is somebody asked us who didn't care. It was a throwaway. So we got a bunch of people out there communicating to us that they said this and they didn't mean it. I remember being, when I was in college, there's a German guy that was in a class, and he was like, you Americans, and I would imagine the Canadians are very similar to this. He said, you guys always ask us how we are, and you never want to hear us. You ask somebody from Germany how they are, they're going to want to tell you. They're going to want to take 15, 20 minutes to lay it out for you. And they go like, you guys over in America, we hate it when you ask us that because you actually don't care. So there's a lot of that dynamic that's going on in North America. How are you when we really don't care? It's a throwaway. So there's people out there conditioning people for that. Second, even sort of more insidious, is where somebody who's getting ready to lower the boom on us in some way or another, in some bad way, will start by saying, how are you? I know of a very long list of people that just before their boss fired them, said to them, how are you? And they were also in that conversation when they sat in that chair, having a really good feeling they were about to get fired. And so when the boss said, how are you? All these shockwaves went through their head in that, do you actually not know that you're about to fire me? Are you unaware that our environment is difficult right now? Or is it that you don't care? And you're really a sociopath who's getting ready to gleefully cut off my head. Now, unfortunately, people have gotten a lot of conditioning along those lines. They've gotten more conditioning along those two lines, that how are you is a cover for something else, as opposed to how are you is genuinely good. So the problem is people are how are you battered in a very bad way. You might mean it. You might want to know. You might want them to take the 20 minutes and lay everything out. But they've been battered by this in advance. So what's a better move? Take, again, a scientifically wild guess on how they are in a moment. Call somebody on the phone and say, hey, it's got to be crazy over there. This global pandemic's got everybody freaking out. There's no way that if you're not freaking out, at least the people around you are freaking out, and everybody's running around. If your hair's not on fire, the people around you, their hair on fire is, or their hair is on fire. And what does that person say when you lay all that stuff out to them? They're like, wow, this guy's not an idiot. This guy's aware that I'm probably going through some tough times right now. I'm going to have that conversation because they're not getting ready to lower the boom on me. And it seems like they actually care because they took the time to try to genuinely display some understanding instead of acting like they were oblivious about it in the first place.
It's funny. My father, for years, somebody would say to him, and he still does it, how are you? And his response is not awful. And people are like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And he's like, sorry to hear what? I just said I'm not awful.
Yeah, there you go, right?
And it's exactly what you just said. People are so programmed to ask the question that they're not even paying attention to what the actual answer of the person is. It's just, we're moving on to the next step.
And what does that bad response on their part show you? That you were right in the first place and not listening.
They're not paying attention to nothing.
Yeah.
So what is, okay, so you just mentioned one could be calling, say, Chris, David, hey, Dave, How are you? It just flows off of people's tongues right now. But it could be a hey, Dave. And I go, Chris, shit's hit the fan right now, man. Can you
Yeah.
say what's happening on your end? Is everybody healthy over there? What is it? If you were going to make a phone call to somebody right now and you're going to call me to check in, how would you approach that conversation?
All right. So, and the way that I say this is, all right, so first of all, I like one of your openings might be, and this is what hostage negotiators do all day long. How do we script our opening to start this off delightfully? So you could say, hey, Chris, shit's in the fan over there, man. It's crazy. And then, or I'm going to say, are you okay? And I'm going to say it just like that. Because most people say, are you okay? As if, all right, let's move on. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Are you okay? And
Really
I
dig
did this
into it.
with one of my assistants the other day because, I don't know what's going on. And I sent her a text and I said, are you okay? And she said, nah, I'm fine, everything's good. And I said, and I came back with, no, seriously, are you okay? Are you okay? I mean, I wasn't going to come off of it, and I changed my emphasis in the way that I said it to like, hey, look, I'm not kidding around. I really want to know. And based on the circumstances that I just got, the context, situation drives strategy, context drives strategy. You've given me some indication that you might not be okay. I'm not going to pretend like I didn't see it. I'm going to pretend that I took it in and I'm concerned, and I'm not going to say, how are you? I'm going to say, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm going to stay on that because I'm going to demonstrate an awareness of what the communication and the context just gave me. We're in the midst of a global pandemic and a global economic shutdown. I got reason to believe you might not be okay. And if you give me the slightest inkling that you're not okay, and I say, how are you? I'm coming off as oblivious, no matter how well-intentioned that is. If I come back with, no, are you okay? I mean, I'm not kidding. Are you okay? That shows me as being actually and genuinely concerned and aware of the moment.
And now if we go back to the mirroring principle, we can actually, in essence, listen intently to the person's answer, how they respond, how many words they give you, do the mirroring principle. You now open up the conversation for more conversation, and you can stay away from the, how are you?
Yeah. I mean, stay away. Please, stay away from it.
Okay. Now, I mentioned the second point, going for the no. That, like I said, loved that. And personally, for me, that was a major takeaway for me that day. I know the book again spends an entire chapter on this. And by the way, like I said already, and I'm going to say it again for anybody who hasn't purchased Chris's book, Never Split the Difference. When you're done with this episode of the podcast, make sure you grab your copy. But here's the thing. So here I am, watching you on stage, listening, learning attentively, and my mind starts wheeling. And the first thing that starts going through my mind when we bumped into each other in the hallway at the hotel was how I asked you to even be on the show. Because you ended up saying yes. So I'm thinking like something was done right here for sure. But we're always so programmed to look for the yes, ask that question, look for the yes. And as you said, on the other side, we're so programmed to say no because we can smell a salesperson from a mile away. Right. So share more a little bit, please, about this strategy, like how to implement this situation as a real estate negotiation potentially, or just what kind of lines could be used? Because again, for me, it's that thing of, like one of the ones that I picked up was, I've actually used this a bunch of times now since, and it's money. But it was, would it be crazy to think? And people reply back, no, not at all. You're like, perfect. What are some other of those? Like, would it be crazy to think? What else could we say to people? And what's this whole idea of digging for the no?
Yeah, that's a great precursor. I mean, any one of your yes questions can be flipped easily to a no, and people feel safe and protected when they say no, and they feel concerned and worried when they say yes. So why not make them feel safe and protected? They have conditioned themselves. Every person on earth has conditioned themselves. So when the word no comes out of their mouth, it's like Pavlov's dog when you ring a bell and the dog salivates. When they say no, they feel safe and protected. So is it a crazy idea? Is it ridiculous? Are you against? Do you disagree? Instead of do you agree? Do you disagree? Does it look like something you would like to do? Are you against doing this? Is it a ridiculous idea? Is it a stupid idea? I told a story a whole bunch of times about, I once asked Jack Welch, is it a ridiculous idea for you to come and speak at the negotiation course that I teach at USC? And he hesitated and stared off into space and froze, and I thought he died. And I thought he was furious and gave himself a stroke because he looked furious. But then he looked back at me and said, here's my assistant's name. Here's her contact information. Reach out to her. I will tell her who you are. I think we're going to be in LA in the fall. If we are, we'll come in. From one, no. Question, is it a ridiculous idea? So the stream of consciousness that is in the information that's created by making people feel safe by saying no is insane. It's just absolutely insane. And why does it work? In large part, when people say yes, they feel a sense of obligation and they're not ready to commit. And everything they say after that sense of obligation only increases their obligation, which makes them even more leery of saying yes and anything else at all. When they say no, they feel they're committed to nothing. Consequently, anything they say after that is no more of a commitment. They don't feel the hook. They feel free to share because they feel safe and protected because they said no.
So bottom line, go for the no, and anything that you're looking for in a yes, figure out a way prior to saying anything, flip that around, and now look for the no. And now you're actually getting the response you actually want, even though the response was no.
Yeah, plus probably a whole bunch more information on top of it.
I love it.
Bonus points are almost always there.
You said at one point in your book, don't avoid conflict, treat everything with dignity and respect. Looking at the time and just keeping to time here, what last words can you share with our audience about this statement? And what would you advise anybody right now? What can they do right after they finish this episode today?
Look, this kind of approach to communication and negotiation feels like it's a time waster. What it is it's a delay to save time. You accelerate the entire process with this lubricant, if you will, of tactical empathy. And you particularly accelerate the process by calling out the negatives in the other side's head. We're wired to survive. The survival mechanism is largely negative. We're not wired to succeed. We're wired to survive. Those are two very different things. If you can get people's survival mechanisms to deactivate, their success mechanisms are going to kick into gear, and that's what accelerates the process. So do what you can with tactical empathy, heavy doses at the beginning and as needed as you proceed, and you will accelerate your outcomes. All your communications will take less time overall, and you'll end up being much more profitable because your most valuable commodity at the end of the day is your time.
Can I sum that up with saying, make sure you're always building relationships?
And as a result, you will always build relationships. Amen.
I love it. Last question here. What made you smile today?
Just talking about this, man.
Love it, man.
Making people more effective in their lives, not at others' expense, makes me really happy.
It's amazing. Chris, where can people go to download a copy of the book? And is there anything else you want to make them aware of here today that you guys do, with the Black Swan Group and just any of the offers that you guys have out there?
There's three great resources, and they're complementary. Get your book on Amazon. It's the best price. It's the best delivery. I mean, I buy my books on Amazon because they give you the best price. Order it on Amazon. Subscribe to our newsletter. You got to go directly to the website, blackswanltd.com, BLACKSWANLTD.com. Go to the top toolbar, go to the right, click on the blog, subscribe to the blog. It's free. It's concise. It's actionable. It comes out Tuesday mornings. It's a ridiculously effective supplement to the book. Now then, most people out there are familiar with Masterclass. And Google Masterclass, go on their site, I did a master class. It's 2 days of training. The price is insanely cheap. It's like a masterclass membership is $115. You can buy my class for I think buy my class as standalone, it's $190. Buy a membership for a year, it's like $115. It's stupid. The value for masterclass is insane. You put those three together, and you are going to do great things for your success in your life.
So buy the book, subscribe to the newsletter, the blog there at blackswanlimited.com, ltd.com, and go find Masterclass and look for what? Just search Chris Voss within Masterclass.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's pretty good chance that it's gonna pop up as one of the choices. Anyway, I mean, it was the most active on all the masterclass, including Mark Scorsese, Steve Martin, Serena Williams. Month of March, my negotiation class was the most viewed class on their site. They did a great job putting it together. So it's a ridiculously great value.
Congratulations on that. And do you do the one-to-one coaching? Do you do the group coach? Like, do you do live stuff with people?
We do all that. I mean, if you got a lot at stake right now, you can come to us and we can coach you through it. But for us to coach you effectively, I mean, if you're in an emergency, we will bail you out of it right now.
Yeah.
But for you to maximize your ability when you've been coached with us, I mean, we got in-person events as soon as the world goes back to that.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to need to have read the book first, because we're going to move fast, and the stuff that I just outlined gives you the underpinning to really go to the next level. You ain't getting to the next level unless you've read the book.
Gotcha. Wicked, man. Chris, thank you. Thank you very, very much for making the time today. I appreciate you joining me here on the Mindshare podcast. It's been an absolute honor.
Yeah, David, thank you for having me on, man. I'm glad we bumped into each other in Niagara Falls.
Yeah, likewise, man. You make sure you stay healthy out there.
You too, man.
You're either listening to this on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. Or maybe you downloaded our free Industry Syndicate podcast app. Or maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. And while you're on my site, make sure to download your free copy of the 7 Ways to Communicate ebook to help you build more mindshare so that you can get more market share. And sign up for personal one-to-one mindshare coaching so you can achieve everything you want in life. Wherever you like to consume your content, please rate, review, and subscribe. And if you haven't yet, connect with me on Facebook at Mindshare101 and on Instagram at DavidGreenspan101. This has been another episode of the Mindshare Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and stay healthy.